Hi guys, it's me Quinn, and as always, if you appreciate my content, consider hitting the like button. It's the only way the YouTube algorithm really notices me.
Now, it's been about 3 weeks since Dune opened in the United States, and since then it's grossed about $350 million worldwide. Now, that is technically short of breaking even, but it is good enough considering the pandemic and considering that Dune is a new franchise, and considering the fact that it has been streamed by almost 2 million households since its release on HBO Max. Now, the sequel, as we've previously discussed, has already been greenlit. It will cover the second half of the first Dune book, and according to an interview with Empire Online, Denis Villeneuve has confirmed that the character Feyd Rautha, who appears early on in the book but does not appear in the movie, will in fact be a part of Dune 2. In response to a question about whether or not Feyd would be included, Denis Villeneuve said, "Definitely. That's a choice that I personally brought on. There was enough characters that were introduced in the first part, and it will be more elegant to keep Feyd for Dune Part 2. It will be definitely a very, very important character in the second part." So that confirms something that a lot of people were questioning. A lot of people were worried that they might be flattening Rabban and Feyd into the same character, which to me from the beginning seemed kind of unlikely because watching the first part, Rabban really didn't have any characteristics that resembled Feyd Rautha at all. He was pretty much completely Rabban. If you don't know, Feyd Rautha is of course the nephew of the Baron Harkonnen and also the heir to House Harkonnen. As I mentioned, he does have a minor role in the beginning of the book, but is featured much more prominently in the second half of the book. Now, as far as who will be playing Feyd Rautha, we do not know yet. A lot of people are throwing out names like Bill Skarsgård or Barry Keoghan. I think both of those choices would be interesting, but of course they may very well end up casting someone that is completely unknown, and that would be awesome as well. Now, the important thing to note about Feyd Rautha is that he is the opposite to Paul. They are both results of the Bene Gesserit breeding program, but one is raised under Harkonnen influence and one is raised under Atreides influence. The Bene Gesserit sisterhood, who pull the strings of the Empire, had intended for Jessica's first child to be a daughter, and they had intended to marry that daughter to a Harkonnen son, which would have been Feyd Rautha. So, if the Bene Gesserit plans had gone correctly, Paul would have actually been marrying Feyd Rautha in a different life, but because it went wrong and Paul was a male against their wishes, now Paul and Feyd Rautha can't really coexist in the same ecosystem at all, so they have to challenge each other. I think it's a really interesting dynamic because Paul and Feyd Rautha are very similar, and they could have been very, very similar if not for the differences in upbringing. And this actually relates back to the Duke Leto's dying thoughts in the book, "The day the flesh shapes, and the flesh the day shapes." We are shaped by our environment and our experiences. Paul could have ended up just as cruel as Feyd Rautha, not to say that Paul is a shining beacon of morality or anything, but he could have ended up with that same cruelness and sadism that all the Harkonnens have if he had been raised as a Harkonnen. But as it so happens, he was raised with Atreides values, and he was shaped by that instead. So the confirmation that Feyd Rautha will in fact appear in Dune 2 is really great, and I'm glad that puts to rest some people's concerns that Feyd Rautha would not appear in the movies. He will in fact be making an appearance, but will most likely not be played by Sting. So if you had your hopes up that Sting would be reprising his role from David Lynch's movie as Feyd Rautha, I am sorry for you, but it is not happening. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more Quinn's ideas. Peace out.